Hello and welcome to this week's Aftermaths episode of the Primary Maths Podcast, the show where we talk all things primary maths. With me, Jon Cripwell.
And me, Becky Brown.
How are you, Becky?
I'm very well, thank you, Jon. I've caught up on the traitors, as discussed last week, so I've been busy doing that this week. And yes, looking forward to half term. How are you?
Excellent. Yeah, no, I'm very well, thank you. The Traitors has been excellent this week. I've only seen one of the two episodes from this week so far. It ended on a very frustrating cliffhanger, I have to say. But looking forward to seeing who goes. No spoilers here, of course. But
Of course not.
I will say, if you listen to last week's Aftermaths episode, you will know my feelings about how to play this game effectively, and I think so far they are being borne out. So the maths is winning, I think, at the moment, which is good.
Yeah, absolutely. What else have you been up to this week, Jon?
On Tuesday, I had the pleasure of working with, I think, about 24, 25 maths leads from the Derby Diocesan Academy Trust. I was up in Matlock working with them in a lovely school in Matlock. We were looking at number sense, which I think we're going to have a bit of a chat about next week, maybe, and dyscalculia, and then lots about recent updates and things, and getting started when you're a maths lead at this time of year. Obviously, lots of action planning and those sorts of things going on. So that was great. I've also had the pleasure on Monday of working with a fantastic maths lead from a school in Nottinghamshire. And yeah, that kept me busy on Monday and out of trouble. So that was good. And then I've been prepping for, it's half term next week, isn't it? And we're getting away for a few days next week. So I've been doing some packing and those sorts of things as well.
Brilliant. So a few days off next week then, Jon. Are you going anywhere nice?
Yeah, we are actually. We're heading over to the Netherlands. So yeah, first time, I think I mentioned this before, first time for my two daughters on a plane. So that'll be exciting for them. They're looking forward to that. And yeah, getting to see another country for a bit and seeing what maths looks like in the Netherlands, of course.
Yeah, you'll be collecting up loads of Maths of Life, Jon. I do remember, I think one of our first episodes was your Maths of Life segment was about preparing for the holiday and thinking about comparing prices and things.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so that's the whole reason for me going. Really, is just to do a little bit of research for the podcast. It's all tax deductible, you see, in that case, and makes it all worthwhile.
Great. So, what are we talking about this week then, Jon?
Well, there is, Becky, I'm sure you've come across this, a new number striking fear into the hearts of teachers when they recognise that an answer might give this particular value. You've probably come across it, Becky, I'm sure. It's two numbers, really. Do you know what they might be, what I might be referring to?
I do. I do know what you're referring to. I also have a 12 and 14-year-old at home, so I've heard that far too much in my house as well as at school. So yes, I know exactly what you're referring to.
Yeah, so I went in search of the origin of the 6-7 meme because I wanted to check out that it wasn't anything dodgy, to be honest, when my daughter started talking about it a couple of weeks ago, and trying to find out why kids are losing their minds over it. So I'll share that a little bit later. We are also going to be digging into this week's interview episodes and the takeaways from that. And Becky, I think you might have some etymathsology for us.
I do, yes, related to something mentioned in Tuesday's episode. So we've got lots to get through today then, Jon. A quick reminder for listeners, you can get in touch with the show by emailing us at primarymathspodcast@twinkle.co.uk, and there's no E on Twinkle, or you can leave us a comment or DM on pretty much any of the social media platforms. Right then, Jon, 6-7, let's go.
Yep, 6-7. So I'm sure anybody working in schools, really, or as you say, Becky, with teenage children, perhaps, have come across the 6-7 meme since it started. Probably every day, maybe lots of times every day. So I did a little bit of digging into it because I love a little bit of history, fairly recent history, of course, in this case, taking us all the way back to 2024. And as I know you know, because I know you're a huge fan. Rapper Skrilla released the song Doot Doot. Yes.
Right.
Exactly. And in the song, he references 67th Street, which is in the city that he grew up in, Philadelphia, by saying 6-7. And essentially, I mean, I have got the lyrics to the song here. I can read them to you if you'd like me to.
I mean, could you perform them?
Well, I'm not Skrilla,
Okay,
and
I'll
I
settle for
don't want to
reading.
breach copyright because my performance would be
Oh,
so convincing. We may
yeah,
end up breaching copyright, but
of
I can read
course.
you some of the lyrics.
Yes, please.
So in the song, he says, "Shades on, so I roll with the glasses. Bro says, because he a savage. So many dead ops, so many ashes. You ain't catch that. I can't pass this. Shooters say, shooters stay strapped. I don't need mine. Bro put belt right to they behind. The way that switch, but I know he dying 6-7."
Okay.
I was expecting a round of applause there, Becky. I mean, come on.
I'd love for someone to be tuning in just to hearing you recite those lyrics,
Yeah.
John. Okay,
I
I
mean,
thought maybe
it's
understood about
poetry.
50% of it. Yes,
It is
yes.
poetry. I'm just feeling very old now, Becky. So in October 2024, the song started to be used in videos of sports clips. And one of the first was referencing an NBA uh, basketball star called LaMelo Ball, who is quite tall. Do you want to guess how tall he is?
Is he 6'7"?
He is 6'7". He's 6'7". So when they said 6-7 in the video, then the song cut in of Skrilla also saying 6-7,
Okay.
and all of a sudden then lots of videos where somebody would say 6-7, like the score 6-7 or whatever, and then the song would start, and so these clips became sort of viral. They got millions of views. And then they began to evolve and they moved away from sports and even stopped dropping the song in there as well. And it just became people saying 6-7, basically. And then over time, the sort of the hand movement came in with it as well, because that's all part of it. Somebody else, another TikTok star, introduced that. And so, as with everything, Becky, these days, it seems to have just evolved over time on social media. So I thought we should run with it, to be honest, because I think if there's a way, if you want to stop kids using this, then we should probably just start using it ourselves, and that will
Yeah, that is a
immediately
surefire way to nip it in the
put
bud.
it dead. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I was going to say, it never ceases to amaze me how quickly these seemingly not very exciting things take get going, and then suddenly they're massive.
Yeah, and it's all well, it's a viral hit, isn't it? So I
Yeah.
thought there's a few things that we could do here. First, we could point out some interesting facts about 67, the number, because 6-7 was based on 67th Street, so
Yeah.
67. So 67 is a prime number, of course. It's only got two factors, one and itself. It's also a lucky number. Maybe one week we'll go into what a lucky number is.
Okay.
But there's a specific definition of lucky numbers, and it's all about how they are composed. So 67 is not just a prime number, it's a lucky prime number. And also, and this is one of the facts that I quite like about it, it's the sum of 5 consecutive prime numbers. So 7 plus 11 plus 13 plus 17 plus 19, 5
Oh, I like
consecutive
that.
prime numbers. Yeah, and it's made up of those 5 consecutive prime numbers. And I thought if I was in class now, I would probably be leaning into this 6-7 meme. So I thought about how could we utilize it a little bit. So I thought maybe we could have sort of a time challenge. I'm going to set you 1 minute to see how many different calculations you can come up with that give the answer 6 7 or 67, something like that, maybe, or combination of those digits, and then you could change it. That could then be differentiated. Couldn't it? If you work in year 1 or year 6, you could use different operations or whatever you wanted to do. Maybe set some criteria around how they have to make those numbers. Um, Even go into negative numbers of versions of those numbers if you wanted.
Yeah.
Or I thought we could play a game called Avoid the 6-7 Trap. So you could put some questions up where the answer looks like it might be 67, but they can only shout out 67 or 67 if the answer really is 67. So, for instance, I might put 11 times 6 on the board and hope nobody shouts out 67, because the answer to that obviously would be
I
66.
love that
But I
idea,
could also put
Jon.
up 70 take away 3 and hope that, the first person shouts out 67 or 67
I love
uh,
that.
gets the points. So yeah, I just thought let's make the most of this
Yeah.
ridiculous viral meme, and we don't often get them that have got numbers in them, so we need to
No, we
harness
should
this. We need to take the
make
power
the
of it.
most of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
absolutely.
It is amazing how many times you actually end up saying it. I mean, I'm sure that's probably true of any two numbers, maybe, but
Yeah,
because I'm aware of it now, it's
but of
coming out
course
all the time.
but of course the classic one, Becky. Whenever I was calculating numbers on the board, and all of a sudden your heart would drop when you realized that the answer to the question was going to be 69, particularly working in year 6, or uh, it was just, is anybody going to make, but apparently nobody picks up on that anymore, which is great.
Oh,
But if the answer is going to be 67, that's when the sniggers
yeah,
start. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah,
But I
times
think
are
you're right.
changing.
You've got to embrace it. Run with it. Perfect
Absolutely.
time to really drill the fact that 6 times 7 is 42.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Why not?
Absolutely. So yeah, you could use that as part of the games as well, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Love that. Um, Excellent. Okay, so etymathsology, Becky, what have you got for us this week?
Yes. So this week I was inspired by your conversation with Simon around pi. He was talking about how he had gone into a deep dive into pi and where it's come from and so on. Now, I didn't quite go that far, but these things do always go a little bit further than you mean them to. So, first of all, I was actually quite interested into why we use pi and why that was chosen as the symbol for the number pi. It was first recorded as a mathematical symbol by a Welsh mathematician called William Jones in the year 1706.
That is a very Welsh name,
That's
isn't
what I
it?
thought
It's a
when I
classic
read it.
Welsh name.
Yeah, typical. And but basically he got it from abbreviating the Greek word for periphery, which I'm not even going to attempt to try to say, but
Oh, now come
its first,
on.
no. Its first letter, which was pi, and that's how it started being used. So that's why it's pi. I mean, rolls off the tongue a bit easier than epsilon or one of the other Greek
Yeah,
letters, but that's why. But I thought, well, actually, etymathsology for that doesn't really work. But I started thinking about circles. We come across circles, don't we, in year 6 when we start thinking, well, before that, but we start talking about them, and they cause us a bit of a headache. Circles, because talking about properties of circles particularly gives us a bit of a headache. Um, so I looked into the etymathsology or the etymology of some circle related words.
excellent.
So,
Okay. I was actually helping my daughter yesterday with some of her year 8 homework on circles and some language that I was less familiar with because it's not in the Key Stage 2 curriculum. So this is interesting for me, Becky. I want to hear it.
yeah. Well, I did originally have a list of 9 different parts of a circle. Believe it or not, there are that many. But I haven't done them all. I have just done the ones that you probably have heard of, John, the
Okay.
safest ones, which I
Yeah,
knew
that's
more,
good.
I was more familiar with. So the obvious one is just starting with circle. So came from Latin, the usual suspect, and was a diminutive of the word circus, which is a ring or a circular line. That's pretty obvious. That makes sense. Lovely. We then could move to look at the circumference, which is, of course, the perimeter around the edge of a circle. That also comes from Latin. The prefix circum, meaning around, and the Latin verb ferra, I don't know how if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but ferra, which is carry. So together it meant to carry around, which I thought was quite
Oh,
interesting because you don't really carry around, do you, when you're thinking about the edge of a
No.
circle?
I suppose if you were to no, I'm thinking about circumnavigating and things, which is,
Yeah, it
kind of a different thing.
the only way I could think of maybe, thinking about a circumference as carrying around was, on, like, World's Strongest Man, when they have to walk round a circle carrying a heavy log. That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking about, but, I mean, that's what my brain went to. But
Obviously. Where else would it go when you're thinking about
yes,
circumference and carrying things? World's
World's
Strongest Man.
Strongest Man.
Yeah, I if you can't make an analogy of something from the World's Strongest Man, it's not worth talking about, is it?
Yes. I'll try and get one in from now
Yeah,
on.
yeah. Yeah.
So circumference to carry around. I thought, well, that isn't totally obvious. The carry bit is a bit strange, but yeah, okay, I get it. Um, Diameter is slightly different in that it comes from the Greek, which is
Oh, okay.
diametros. Uh, dia meaning across or through, and metron meaning measure. So literally measure across.
Makes sense.
So
Yeah.
makes perfect sense. And then my favorite was radius. So I know from my own children or tutoring or talking about that, sometimes it can be difficult to remember, can't it? Which one's which? You
Yeah.
know that one is halfway across and one is all the way. So diameter measuring across, that would be helpful. Well, radius comes back from the Latin again, from the word radius, which was the spoke of a chariot wheel.
Ah, okay. So from the center
Yes.
of the chariot wheel to the edge, which is where spokes go.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, the radius means a few other things as well, a staff, a ray of light, but I felt like that was
Less helpful
actually
with circles. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
I felt like thinking about it as a spoke of a wheel, any wheel, was actually quite helpful going from the center outwards. And then, of course, we've got the radius bone, which is also called that because it acts like the spoke of a wheel pivoting around
Yeah.
the ulna.
There you go.
There you
This
go.
is not just a primary maths podcast, it's now the primary medical biology
Yeah,
podcast.
we've dipped into anatomy there.
Yeah,
So,
lovely.
and that's where I stopped. I could have gone a little bit further, but I felt like that was probably enough for this week. But quite interesting what comes from Latin, what comes from Greek, and how some of this is really helpful. We think, oh, yeah, that's going to really help us. And some of it, maybe not so much.
Yeah, so last night I had to remind myself, well, I actually learn, I think, exactly what tangents were, and sectors, and another part of a circle that I now forget because I don't need to know it now that I've helped my daughter with her homework. It will come back to me at some point, I'm sure. But yeah, so that is useful. So diameter measuring across and radius thinking about the spoke of a wheel. Yeah, really
Yeah,
helpful. Yeah, love that, Becky. Thank you very much.
good, good.
Interestingly, talking about circles, I was at the NCTM Primary Maths Mat Leeds uh, community event last week in Birmingham, and one of the warm-up activities they used there was a question from their checkpoint series, which is sort of a Key Stage 3 resource, but actually based on a lot of Key Stage 2 knowledge. And it was a picture of a circle with a red outline, the circumference,
Hmm.
if you like, of the circle, and a yellow shaded in the middle. And so if you can picture that red sort of line creating the circle and the inside shaded yellow.
Yeah.
And there were two statements. One said something like the names don't matter here, but John says that the circle is red, and Becky says that the circle is yellow. Who do you agree with? And I just thought that was a really nice sort of way of thinking about circles in a different way than you might. It would be a great question in year 6 to open up the conversation about what makes a circle a circle.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and which bit is the circle and which bit is not the circle.
Yeah,
So
that's,
yeah,
I love that.
I guess the answer when you think about what makes a circle, it's a fixed point that measures out to the same point all of surrounding a fixed point, isn't it? The same distance from that point
Yeah.
to the edge all the way around is what makes a circle a circle. So I think I would probably argue it's the red
Red.
the red line, the circumference. But yeah, it's a great question. And interestingly, they were slightly non-committal themselves on the definition of who was right. So
I
take
find
that
that's
how you will.
probably safest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Generally with geometry, it's hard to be sure about anything, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes in a subject that's all about often seems to be all about finding the right answer. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, if in doubt, just avoid it.
yeah. It's just we're not focusing on the answer. We're focusing on the journey and how you get to that answer. Okay, so shall we do the interview debrief, Becky?
Yeah, let's. So now is the part of the show where we dig into key takeaways from this week's interview and things that you might want to try out in your own school or practice.
Yeah, and this week I had the pleasure of speaking to Simon Bond, who is our national education lead for AI, and I had a great conversation with him all about how teachers might be using AI to support in teaching generally and in maths teaching particularly, the potential pitfalls of using AI and the potential best case scenario usages, I suppose, of this new ish technology as well. So thank you again, Simon, for coming on and talking to us. And if you haven't caught that episode yet, it's well worth going back to have a listen to that. I think it's episode 22 of the Primary Maths podcast, and that's available for you to listen to now. So, Becky, were there any particular takeaways that jumped out to you this week?
Yeah, I think the main thing was thinking about the analogy of training AI and how similar it is to teaching. I was thinking about what Simon was saying about the use of contextual information, how it's really important to give enough information to get a good result, and how actually that is quite true also when you're teaching a new concept. You want to give all the information to be able to make sense of it. So I was thinking about that and how it's that mathsness that stands us apart as humans, but we do have to apply some common sense and some experience from being a human to make it make sense, which you can't necessarily do, I guess, if you're a machine. Or, well,
No,
can't
no.
do as well.
And that human in the loop uh, that is still so necessary. It's important to recognise that I don't think we're in any danger at the moment of AI completely taking over our jobs or anything like that. But in terms of time saving, when it comes to admin and things like that, I think that it's got a huge potential. But as you say, it just needs to be used in the right way, and how you give it the information is a critical part of that, I think.
Yeah, I think I was thinking back to, was it 21 tasks? I'm going
Yes,
back
yeah.
some time. The 21 tasks that
Yeah,
were going to be
the
removed from it.
NUT's 21 tasks as it was at the time. It's now the NEU, of course, but it
Yeah.
was at one point the National Union of Teachers, I think. And they had 21 tasks, didn't they, that teachers were not supposed to spend their time doing?
Yes. I mean, it, the idea of it was great. Teachers are so time poor. Of course, we wouldn't want them to do things that they don't need to be doing. In practice, it didn't really work out that way. Um, but if there are some of those sorts of tasks that can be outsourced to AI, absolutely, why not? If it's going to save you time. I remember being told very early in my career by a very knowledgeable head teacher, you need to work smarter, not harder. And
Yeah,
actually that's true.
yeah,
We only have a finite amount of time. If something's going to make something quicker, we should do it. It's not necessarily the things that are involved in the actual teaching, is it? It's all the other stuff that comes with
no,
it.
no. And it's interesting. I have seen a couple of news reports of trusts or schools perhaps that have been told that they're not allowed to use AI at all. And to me, that seems counterproductive, really, because I think, as we talked about in the episode, there are definitely dangers with misusing it or relying on it too heavily. But when it comes to using it or seeing it as a tool that you can just use as part of your job, just like you would. It's a bit like saying, our school isn't going to use a word processing system anymore. Everybody's going to handwrite everything, and then we will, copy it out by hand instead of using the photocopier. You can't really stand in the way of that kind of progress, can you? Because, going back to a time when I have to say photocopying has always been part of my school life, but I do know that there was a time before I started working in schools where things were copied in a different way, and it took a lot longer to make those copies of things. So it's an emerging technology that I think we've got to embrace and use in the right way, but just recognise that it isn't necessarily the solution to everything, and definitely not rely on it to be accurate all the time, because it's
Yeah.
not necessarily going to be, particularly with maths.
Yeah, and I think it's and we know because we've been playing around with it. There's lots of tools out there, aren't there? It's quite fun to do to find out what can break it and what it what it doesn't like.
Yeah,
And it would be easy to be anxious about it because it's so new and so moving so quickly. What can happen one week is moved on the next week. But I think you're right. It's about having that guidance in place in how to use it and to know that it isn't foolproof and actually still need to check out in the same way as you would if you were just looking for something. If you were reading something, you would fact check it probably, depending on your
yeah.
source,
No,
I
we should
guess.
be doing, definitely.
Yeah.
Um, uh, uh, and for me, it's where it could be really, really useful is in helping us to, because when you're planning a lot of lessons, if I'm planning a week's worth of maths lessons or something like that, and I've thought really carefully about what the lesson's going to look like for the majority of the children, and I've thought about what it might look like for, how I'm going to put in some additional depth for certain pupils who might be ready for that at that point in the lesson. And I've thought about how I might scaffold it for some other pupils who might need some further support in accessing the lesson. And then I might have somebody else that I need to make even further adaptations for. And as Simon was saying, as the AI gets to learn about those particular pupils, it might be in a position where it can help you to suggest ways that might support those on a more individual basis. And I think that's where it could make a real difference when we're seeing such an increase in need when it comes to SEND and things like that. It falls to one teacher to plan, one lesson in multiple ways to try and cater for all the needs in the classroom. I think there's a real opportunity for AI to support, not to replace, but to support
Yeah.
a teacher in undertaking that task.
Yeah. I mean, one of our biggest resources as teachers is other teachers, isn't it? You wouldn't think twice about asking somebody else for their opinion or helping you to think of something. We can't always think of everything. It-
No.
Primary school teachers are trying to do a lot of things. Why couldn't you use a tool that maybe would take expertise from lots of teachers and help you out with it? And like you say, support you with it, not doing it for you, but actually providing some things that you might not be able to do, particularly in a time constrained situation.
Yeah, I think that's key. And at Twinkle, we're investing a lot of time and spending a lot of our own resources looking into this as well. We've got Ari on the Twinkle website. If you want to go and have a look at that and see, just how useful that can be, even in its current state, but it's evolving all the time, and that's what we're exploring now is how it could evolve even further to support teachers in just making our lives a little bit easier, and making learning even more accessible for more children without as many barriers. I think that's
Yeah.
the key to it, really, is how it can help us to overcome or remove certain barriers. And then otherwise, aside from that, just those admin tasks. I think I said in the interview, I never found AI particularly useful to help me with writing reports, because I like to really personalize my reports. But as Simon suggested, it can at least, though, give you a starting point with, some ideas for how to phrase something that might be tricky to get over to parents, or,
Yeah.
just if you need another way of wording something, I think it could be useful for those things, or for admin tasks like writing trip letters and stuff like that. That I think it's great for those sorts of things, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you summed it up, John. I think it's a great tool used properly. and with an awareness of what the limitations are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Becky, I think that just about wraps things up for this week. So huge thanks again to Simon for joining us and sharing so much of his knowledge and ideas. And I think it's a case of watch this space when it comes to AI. It is changing rapidly. It's probably changed since we even recorded that interview about 2 weeks ago. So I'm sure we'll be hearing from Simon again. But thank you so much for joining us and for talking to us and sharing those things with us. And thank you for listening. Shall we do it again next week, Becky?
Yeah, why not? Although, because it's half term for most of us next week, there won't be an interview episode. Instead, the Aftermaths episode will be released on Tuesday next week. As always, if you have enjoyed today's show, please share it with a colleague, and don't forget a quick rating or review helps other people stumble across the podcast too.
Absolutely. So we'll be back on Tuesday with another Aftermaths episode. We'll see you then.